What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Song Game. I'm your host, Megan Lacey, and every week we explore songwriting through small prompts, not necessarily to write better songs, but to understand how songs come together in a side of our own process. This week's prompt comes straight from my writing from last week's prompt, and I hit a little road bump, a little snag. And I think you guys probably want to hear about it because it's something that I'm really coming to understand, but I didn't understand for a very long time in my writing practice. I was going along, everything was technically working, the chords were all right, the lyrics were starting to form into a story, but the amount of lyrics and syllables that I had, along with my melody, was making the song sound vague and have this unidentity, if you want to call it that. Like the melody was trying to carry the lyrics, but the lyrics were just dragging the melody around in this weird way that made it seem really vague and foggy. And what I realized is that the melody and lyrics were being a bad influence on each other. A lot of us, especially early on, but it still happens in my practice as it happened this week, tend to think more words, more clarity. But this is actually the opposite of what really happens. Since space is one of the best conductors of emotion and meaning, when we fill the space with too many syllables, too many words, and ultimately too many melodic points, we're muddying up the meaning. So what we're working on this week is letting the melody lock in. I'm going to play you guys an example from my writing this week. As it was happening, I realized that I wasn't really satisfied with how the lyrics were fitting into the melody, and that the melody wasn't really my favorite part, and usually the melody is my favorite part. So it made me question why. And that's when I came upon this little realization that I think has been unconscious, but really just started seeping into my songwriting within the last few years. So for this week's prompt, I want you guys to work on letting the melody lock into place. I want you guys to either take a song that you've already written that may kind of have a vague identity, something that you're not super fond of and you're not really sure why, but maybe it has a lot of words in it. Or if you want to manufacture this problem, then go ahead and write a lot of words to convey something that you're trying to say. Sometimes a song needs to be overwritten so that it can be chiseled down into what it actually wants to be. So now let me show you an example of what I was writing this week and how it started to feel a little bit cumbersome with syllables and melody together. Especially in those days it's all one melody note, but because of the amount of syllables, I had to chop up that note into a bunch of different pieces. So here we go. Let's listen. Those days in the beginning, sitting in the back seat. If you want to send me a message, whisper to me. Take me back in time, just you and me. You can put your guard down. Okay, a lot of words, right? And I was definitely searching for things to say for this melody. So I was typing a lot of words and just seeing what fit and what ideas I could get to go together. But pretty soon, I had my verse, and it was a lot of words. So what I ended up realizing was I needed more space to convey the emotion and the melody. So next, I want us to go back in and kind of start chopping things down. And especially if you guys are new to revision, it's going to feel pretty uncomfortable. And I would even bet that some of you who are watching this prompt are going to prefer the first melody and lyric combination over the second one, because maybe you kind of get attached to hearing something one way and have a hard time letting go of that. And that's totally fine. Everyone goes through that phase, and I encourage you to let it be a phase. Let yourself become comfortable hearing things in different ways. So now we're going to go back into this original melody lyric set and we're going to chop some things down. Those days were young in the backseat. Did you wanna run? Nowhere to be. Take me back in time, just you and me. Put your guard down. So, in the original, those days in the beginning, it felt pretty choppy to me. It felt like that doesn't really fit into the melody. Even though we're fitting it into the melody, it felt like it was getting chopped up in the beginning. It's kind of a wordy way to say that. So I just wanted to lengthen that melody note, and I found those days were young. Well, what does that even mean? For one, it's a fresh way to say the old days, or when we were little, or something like that. It might not be colloquial, but maybe it's something new. Maybe it's something fresh that we can bring to the table, phrase something or say something in a new way. And that's totally okay. Maybe you don't like that phrase, and you don't have to. I'm not sure I'm totally sold on it, but it is a new way to say something. The other thing I learned once I started kind of chopping these phrases down was that this could turn into a call and response, whereas before it didn't feel as cut and dried in that way. So already we're gaining a little bit of identity here in this shift. We're gaining a call and response, and we're gaining being able to sustain longer notes in the melody. Those days were young. Da-na-na-na. Na 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 na. Do you hear how the more wordy melody kind of becomes a little bit more difficult to hang your hat on? We're just toying here. So if you prefer this singer-songwriter lilting melody style, I love that. Sometimes some of my favorite songs are that way. So I'm not saying that that's a bad way to write. I'm just saying that there are these things to kind of toy with and pay attention to. If we want that in our song, great, we should write that in. But if we didn't even know it was happening, and that's kind of the sound that we continue to create without recognizing why, I would say the farther along you go in your journey, it will become problematic, because you will feel tied down by that unchoice. And not really know why you feel tied down. So we're just looking at these things in with question marks. So now that you've chopped some of your words out and created some space for your melody to settle in, I want you to commit to it through the rest of your song. In this way, you're letting your song come into its own identity. So this week, you guys, I want you to recognize how closely melody and lyrics play together, and if one is slightly problematic, too wordy, or not really locking in, you can look at the other one to help you figure out where to give it a little bit of love. Often the thing that unlocks a song is not a better message, but it's fewer words so that your message can be both simple and profound. If this week's prompt helped you guys lock in something new, I'd love to hear about it. And if you want to share a snippet of your song or writing process, tag us at Inside the Song Game on Instagram. If you want to share a full song for this week's SoundCloud playlist, go to InsideTheSongGame.com and go to the Song Game tab. You'll find a submission form, and I'd love to put your song on our playlist this week. I can't wait to hear what your melodies do to lock in this week, and I'm going to be right there with you writing a new song this week, so I'll share it when I can, and I'll see you guys next week for another prompt. Thank you so much.